Hey everyone, Kevin here. Now that I'm back in job search mode, I am starting to re experience how awkward and uncomfortable both applications and interviews can be these days. Sometimes even to the point that they put me off. And that led to today's video, where I wanted to talk about the fact that it's okay to withdraw yourself from consideration for a job. Now, many people on the one hand would say, well, yeah, of course you can do that, while others would say, I'm so desperate I would never do that. Either way, we all need a reminder to, in fact, do this when something makes you uncomfortable or leads you to being unsure about a position. This may happen before you ever click submit on the application in the first place. That happened to me just the other day. I was about 80% of the way through an ID application, and then I started being given really personal questions that I thought were inappropriate. Things that might be personal, identifiable information beyond what you would normally put in a resume or on an application. Plus, private questions about my life and job experiences that made it seem that they wanted to know my political stances and if I'd be willing to talk about previous employers in a negative light. Overall, it was really uncomfortable, and I felt like I was dodging a bullet by not submitting that application because something just felt off to me. I wasn't willing to work for someone willing to dip into my private life in ways no employer ever should. I remember how administrators, while teaching, would try to do that, and I vowed to never let that happen to me again. On the other hand, you may need to withdraw yourself following an interview where you didn't feel right about it afterwards. There have been interviews where I refused to answer certain questions because it was none of their business, and it was clear they were trying to trip me up and get me to agree to things I never would have otherwise. Again, I'm used to that from my time in education, and I wasn't planning on going through that a second time. In this case, I contacted both the hiring manager and the recruiter to tell them that I had a quote poor hiring process because I didn't feel respected and or have a good rapport with the interviewers. Thankfully, this is a fairly rare occurrence for me, but when it happens, I just withdraw myself from the application. If you have a gut feeling that something isn't right, then it probably isn't. I remember one time where I was hired as a teacher in a district pretty far away from me, actually, and I accepted out of desperation because I was so in need of a job at that time. However, I didn't feel right and something was bothering me, but I just chose to ignore it. As it came time to sign my contract, though, they hedged their bets on the belief that I wouldn't read all the fine print, but I did, and discovered that they had outright lied to me about what my job would entail and how it was not a full time position as they claimed throughout the entire hiring process. I walked out of that signing meeting and removed myself from consideration because of that and the lies. Now, there are other more generalized times where you may need to withdraw yourself that aren't this serious, but you need to keep them in mind. For instance, number one, relocation. They might suddenly change the job from remote to in person or even add in a requirement that you need to travel 25% of the time or something like that. If you aren't willing to relocate or travel for work that much, then that would clearly be a reason to no longer be interested and pull yourself out of consideration. Number two, you don't fit with the company culture or goals. I've said before that you need to interview an interviewer as much as they are you. Learn about their culture, what their values are, and the personalities of the team you would be on. I knew someone else recently who was actually told that she shouldn't lead with certain points on her resume that actually showed off how good she was and that he wasn't impressed by and ended up putting her down for it in a backhanded sort of way. Basically, if it doesn't sound like a place or group you would want to be, listen to that voice in the back of your mind and don't go through the rest of the hiring process. You want to end up in a better place where you are respected and treated as an asset. Don't work for someone or a group who would run counter to that. I know many people who withdrew because they sense a nepotistic or misogynistic culture based on the questions being asked, just to name a couple of examples. And lastly, number three, there is the oldie but goodie salary concerns. Look, we all need to sustain ourselves and sometimes accept work that is more for an interim period rather than something permanent. But make sure you're getting paid what you're worth or what you need to maintain your standard of living wherever it is you live. If the compensation is simply too low to pay your bills and they won't budge, then that just isn't a job that is going to work for you in the end. This is also why so many of us may not even apply to that job in the first place because the salary range from the outset is so bad. If you ever have to withdraw yourself from consideration for any reason, make sure you honestly, truthfully, but respectfully let them know. Thank them for their time and leave things on good terms, even if you have no intention of ever applying there again. Write a carefully worded letter that is, as I said, honest but firm about why you are withdrawing. Sometimes this feedback actually leads to changes in that employer's practices for future applicants, so it can be a good idea. I know that withdrawing before or following an interview is difficult, even if it may have been the right decision for you, because you simply need a job to pay the bills. I'm right there with you, and I know, but in the end, I would rather work in a place that aligns with my goals and objectives in life rather than be miserable in something I don't want or didn't really want to sign up for. But that's it for today. As always, I am here to help you should you ever need it or answer any questions you may have. See you next time.